Hello and welcome to today's webinar by Refinitiv and Trading Central on data driving confident investment decisions. Apologies, we're starting a few minutes late. We just had a couple of technical hitches, but we're now ready to go. I'm William Ferrand. I'll be your moderator today as we talk about the importance, even the criticality of having a compelling digital offering in the wealth management industry. We're going to look to explore how the modern investor is evolving, what this means for wealth managers, and really how to consider their demands. We'll also touch on some of the innovations and trends that are likely to make a long-lasting impact to support more confident investing, drive elevated and profitable strategies, which at the end of the day is what we want for our customers, and how wealth firms can harness the power of content and analytics as part of their digitalization strategy. So as part of this, I'm very, very fortunate today to be joined by two absolute experts in this field, who can help us navigate through what really is an ever-changing landscape, and where change seems to be accelerating. So very, very exciting landscape as well. So firstly, I'm joined by Catherine, who is the Senior Director of User Insights and Analytics at Trading Central. She's had a long career in fintech, building investment research products from the ground up, and is in very high demand for her perspective on how user experience is changing. Actually, I'd say that she's probably driving some of these global trends herself. So really, really great to have you on board, Catherine. And do you want to share a little bit more about your team at Trading Central?
Yeah, thanks for starting us up so professionally. I'm glad some people were able to log in today and join us. Yeah, actually, I've got a really neat team that I'm working with right now. We are studying user behavior. I've got a number of data engineers and UX practitioners that are really studying what's working, what factors are contributing to longevity with using the services that we offer through online brokers. So Trading Central's content and analytics are embedded in the experiences of so many online brokers globally. And it gives us a really unique perspective to study that and understand, what's really effective. And then I've got a number of designers that help me go out and consult to these companies, really help them understand what content we have to move their experience forward and come up with some practical plans for doing that. So it's kind of a neat mix of design and data analytics.
Brilliant, and yeah, fascinating. Really, really interesting area that's going on at the moment. I'm sure looking forward to hear even more about it in due course. And we're also joined by Charles Smith. So Charles is the Global Head of Digital Solutions for Wealth Management at Refinitiv, where he's really responsible for driving the strategic direction, business planning and financial results for the Refinitiv Digital Solutions business. He's got great knowledge in wealth management product areas from his current role, but also previous roles where he was Managing Director of Wealth and Asset Management Advisory Practice at Ernst & Young. And he's actually also the inventor on 8 US patents on process and product design. So Charles, should I let you sort of talk more about what you're up to as well?
Sure. Thanks, Will. It's great to be here with you and Catherine today. So as you know, Will, at Refinitiv, we're doing quite a bit. Data's in our DNA, right? What we do is provide wealth managers with all the market data, news, content, information, analytics that they need to do their job. And it's both for the advisor and the investor. And as we've seen over the past few years, especially during the pandemic, more and more investors and advisors are looking for more information content. They're doing a lot more on their own, the investor side. And it's about giving them the right data at the right time to help them make those decisions. And it's doing, as Catherine knows from her time at Trading Central, it's not just data by itself, it's actually doing the right analytics, providing insights, providing information at the point that they need it, right? It's not a lot, historically, many investors have been out on their own, looking up information, doing their own research, trying to guide themselves, but really it's about giving it to them, in a nice digital experience where they can get it, in line with what they're looking to do, a nice workflow and the ability to use that data to make a decision. And I think that's what we're focusing on here at Refinitiv. And I think, the same thing at Trading Central, where it's about doing the best you can with the data you have and adding the analytics and information that really makes it insightful.
I love the way you describe that, Charles, because it's been so interesting to watch the evolution of the investing experience over, it's for me, it's been like 2 decades. But originally it was like people were adding new tools, new investment research tools to their, literal site maps. I mean, it was a link to go and visit a tool. And when you describe bringing insights to the moments that it can be helpful to the investor, I mean, that's where a lot of the creative work comes into play. And that's where the algorithms over top of the data become critical, because what we're looking at is how do we bring a relevant piece of data or insight to the moment where someone needs it. And that requires a much more integrated design than just sort of like adding tools to your sitemap that people may or may not go and visit. And so that's one of the areas we're working on lately is really how do we bring insights to the places people are already looking at. They're logging in, and most people log in and they look at their account, they look at their balances, they look at their positions. And so we're really trying to create a more sort of like a holistic experience in that moment in particular, right, is to make it personally relevant to what people have a stake in.
Absolutely. And that's the term personalization is running on quite a bit, Catherine, as you know. That's personalization. It's when I log into my experience, I don't want to go fishing for information. I want to write at my fingertips what I'm looking for based on my portfolio, my preferences, my interests. I want that really right in front of me. That's personalization, right? And using data. Yeah. Data is what powers that personalization. So I think that's what we're going to talk about a little more today, right? Is the ability to use that data to really create the experience that investors are going to keep coming back to over and over.
Brilliant.
Yeah, I think there's a real different. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, Catherine.
No, it's interesting the word personalization because, like, historically, we've seen a lot of features developed that are really more customizing the experience. It's really settings that you can save and adjust as the user interfacing with the application. And I mean, real personalization is a lot more proactive. It's a lot more intelligent to leverage what we know about someone, and often for online brokers that are sort of leading the way in doing this, it's really about understanding what people hold, what people have been looking at, what they've been engaging with, and how we can do a better job of curating that. So ultimately, investors, traders, they want to get down to the level of detail offered by data. These are, people who are interested in the data itself, but that sort of layer of, a summary, a score, some sort of, visualized rating, those kind of things help us deliver things in certain moments and then like draw people over to the data that they're that they would be interested in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that's fascinating, and I'm quite looking forward to getting deeper into that sort of personalization and also to winding back and understanding the investor better. But before actually, one thing I should have mentioned before we got onto the introductions in terms of housekeeping, I've seen a few questions in the chat, so I'll quickly answer those as well. We do want this to be interactive, so we will have some polling questions that will come up on the screen for you there. It's all multiple choice except for one where you can sort of select sort of multiple options, so it should be pretty easy to use. Actually, I'll put one up now so that you can have a look at how it works, if I can put it up, and also so that we can get a better idea of who's in the audience. I can see a couple of you have used the chat already for Q&A, but do use the Q&A and we'll go through your questions as we go along. And then finally, we'll be sending an email following the presentation with the recording in case your colleagues are missing this or there's something you'd like to cover again. And you'll be receiving a survey so as you leave the webinar. So do take a couple of minutes if you have got the time to help us improve and to let us know if you want to be contacted. But if we come back to where we were starting, and I think Charles and Catherine, you were sort of getting into some pretty interesting topics there. But if we sort of rewind it to think of that modern investor, and maybe this is one for you, Catherine, but who is the modern investor? how has their profile changed over the years? What do we sort of think of when we now think of that modern investor?
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen is a shift from, what really started out as sort of a niche category, where you had very highly engaged and sort of sophisticated, even self-taught, investors come in and be sort of like willing to put the work into learning a platform, learning an application, discovering where everything is. And I think that's really where I think we've moved a long way away from that, where we have new cohorts of investors. Investors is broadly popular. It's hard to find somebody who hasn't maybe at least installed an app and been curious about investing. And I think that trend is being driven by the all of these like amazing new neo brokers and new applications that are being offered on mobile. It's just so easy to encounter the business, encounter the industry, and start poking around at it. So I think the inherent like simplicity and attractiveness of some of the new brands and some of the new applications really has helped to expand the market. It's just that after a year or two, as people start to understand what is what, then they start to expect more and require quite a lot of data, and yet their expectations for how that data is delivered to them is a lot different than it used to be. They're expecting the application to do the work to deliver what's needed to keep it simple and yet rich at the same time. So, yeah.
No, I think I'll just expand a little bit. I think I agree 100%. It's all these new fintechs that are bringing new ideas, new channels, new information, new ways of working, right, to some of these investors, and they're really excited about, not dealing with, their grandparents' brokerage, right? They're seeing new ways of investing. They're getting more information. I think a lot of them, in terms of the modern investor, are getting information from other sources. So that's the big challenge for the wealth provider today. Is historically you've provided the basics, right? The quotes and the news that they need, but they're getting a lot of their information from other sources, YouTube, Reddit, social media, Facebook, any of these other third parties that are out there that are providing, user investor sentiment, right? They're driving the markets, right? It's, you saw obviously about a year ago in the US with GameStop, right? All the momentum was driven by Reddit. So people need to be aware of what's going on around them, not just what's on the screen in front of them, but the whole market's influenced by many more people. And there are, to your point, there are many more investors in the market today. So a lot of them are new, a lot of them are learning. They're going with the wind, right? They're trying to see what's next and where the market's going to go. They're looking at all these different sources. So it's about, as a wealth provider, harnessing those sources and giving your investors, your clients, the best view of both the quantitative and the qualitative that's out there to do your research.
I feel like that really speaks to the. Sorry, go
ahead. you go for it, Catherine.
Yeah, no, there's so much to say. I mean, really, it's such a great conversation. I'm glad you pulled it together. We often talk about this infobesity problem, like, Charles, you're talking about people accessing just a ton of information that's available from so many different sources. And, I think that's one thing that, we work well together on is sort of like, how do we take this sort of professional news commentary and, analyst research, for example, and, summarize it and, compare it to all of the chatter that's going on in the marketplace. And so that's where we sort of came up with Market Buzz, which is providing that. Actually, I can switch over to the Market Buzz slide, I guess, and if we have any joint clients on the call, they'll be familiar with this one. But this is where we're taking news and social media posts harvested from the internet, like from those vast sources that you talk about, but also from really reputable sources, like Reuters, for example, from your company. And so just to add a layer over top with natural language processing and artificial intelligence, where we can digest that, we can summarize it, we can sort of declare the sentiment and what topics people are talking about. And so that's where, yes, there's a ton of data, but there's also a number of companies, us and others that are working on this problem of helping people digest it and make sense of it.
I think that leads to an interesting thing where during the pandemic and over the last couple of years, we've seen that sort of boom in the investor and potentially investors moving away from sort of more traditional wealth managers or brokers to some of the sort of neo brokers. And now with markets a bit sort of choppier this year, what can some of the wealth managers that may have lost some of their customers over the last couple of years and some of the new neo brokers that have attracted new customers, what can they do to sort of retain that investor and sort of try and bring that difference?
Yeah, I can start on that one, Will. I think we just recently did a survey, which I'll touch upon here at Refinitiv, that kind of touches on some of those things. What do the modern investors really need? If you either want to retain them or keep them, and it all comes back down to personalization. If I can advance this line, there we go. Oh. So our survey really pointed out exactly what you're saying is, these new investors need personalized experiences, and that really comes in a couple different things that drive it. There's a couple things they're looking for, right? One is, up top is understanding the client, right? And using data to better understand your customers, right? So they're not just another ID, another login, another unnamed person, but understanding their goals, their interests, really what makes them tick, right? Is what the wealth provider needs to do today, because the investors looking for it. You see the fact below, 64% of millennials, 51% of Gen X investors are willing to pay more, right? So if you could do it right, if you can understand the investor, give them what they need, right? They're going to come to you and they're going to be willing to pay, whether it be for advice or for different services or for trading opportunities, options, capabilities, or other more sophisticated assets. They're going to come back to you and stay with you because you're going to be able to give them the personalized experience, the information they're looking for, the trading capabilities, the asset classes they want to trade are all going to be part of your experience, and that'll drive them back to you or allow you to capture them, right? But it's gotten so hard to capture new clients, post-pandemic. There's no way to meet with people in some ways face-to-face anymore, or to go out, door to door and acquire new clients. It's all through digital channels. So what makes them come to your digital doorstep is going to be about the capabilities you can offer. In our survey, what we really saw five trends or 5 things that really popped up that made clients loyal and engaged in your platform. Number one is alternative investments, right? The ability to offer new investments, private equity, cryptocurrency, NFTs, obviously as well. That's what they're looking for. So I'm not saying that crypto is the best investment, but people want to have that as part of their allocation, right? At least the option to invest in crypto as part of their allocation. So the ability to offer some of these newer investment types is going to make them want to come to you because you can offer them everything, right? They're not going to want to come, to one broker for equity and to another for crypto. They want one place to go for everything to get all the information and data and trading that they need. 2 is social. We talked about this, having social media as part of your offer. They're looking at social media as a source, and they want to see you on social media as well as a broker. So it's ability to use social media to your benefit and advantage to keep those newer modern investors engaged. 3, obviously mobile technology. The ability to deliver, what you deliver online through a mobile channel is critical. It can't be, 100% in online and half of your capabilities in mobile. It's got to be on par with what you're doing on your online experience. 4, as Catherine said, keep it simple, right? This is the challenging part. All this stuff needs to be done in a really simple workflow that allows them to get to where they need to go very quickly, either a couple clicks, a couple swipes. They want to be where they need to be, right? You want to have to drive them deep into your application to get the information they need. And the final last piece that we saw is, it is about digital, but having a human element, right? The ability to connect with somebody, whether it be on point, in a conversation, in a research, workflow, to be able to click on a button to get to somebody, to ask a question or get some insight, or to have an advisor that could help you through some of the more tougher times. So, for us, what we see at Refinitiv is these are the things that investors are looking for. So if you're a wealth provider today, you need to be looking at all 5 of these as part of your offer.
Yeah, I can see, I can see a lot of overlap there with some of the things that we talk about and explore with our clients. I think there are some what you might say is incumbent or sort of original brokers out there that do need to work on the look and simplicity of their offering to just look like they're in the category of attracting this new broader market. And different companies are taking different approaches there, launching, sort of sub-brands or new mobile apps that have perhaps a different look than sort of the large entity that they have to move along and move forward that has all the legacy content in it. The trick is, though, that even the neo-brokers, if they don't expand the data analytics research that's in their offering, after 1-2 years of someone investing in trading, they start to realize that they need more. And this was really apparent to me when I remember when in the US, commissions first dropped to zero. I remember being at an event the day before, speaking with TD Ameritrade and Schwab. And anyway, that was a really interesting time. But what happened following that brand going to zero commission was a lot of the people from the Robinhoods and the Stashes and the new sort of brands moved over because now they could get more data analytics, research tools, without having to have this perception of paying more for it. So it's really been interesting to see this shift of people and the interplay between, the richness of data and content and the price, the price to pay for, for using certain brokerage firms. And so one of the ways that we help is we help some of those neo brokers that are, have been so successful bringing on new investors, and we help them get in the game of offering investment research tools. And it's been fun to work with them because they have just a new way of looking at things, and it helps inspire a lot of our work. At the same time, with brands that do already have a lot of content, it's been interesting to work with them around how to use that as a competitive advantage. All of the news and data that they already have a license to, how do we respin that into a sort of refreshing user experience that signals change and that delivers on personalization? Often it's centered around the portfolio and what people have been looking at, what tools, what content, what stocks they're looking at. And, I've seen some really neat sort of like personalized feeds that people come up with. That's a really comfortable way for new cohorts to be accustomed to interacting with online services, is just to sort of scroll through a feed. And so to be able to curate investment research and news and technical analysis and fundamental analysis and all these things into a format where it's just, let me tell you what's changed that's relevant to you based on your interests, based on what you're holding. It's all the same content, just repackaged in a way that appeals to today's investor. And there's some things that are required for that, like the compact scores that we provide as a layer over top of, for example, Refinitiv data, to be able to deliver on that visual experience.
And it would be great to get an idea of what because you've talked about the importance on the data and you sort of touched on some of the analytics, but what are some of those sort of key data points for modern investors to sort of make their decisions?
Yeah, I mean, we really like to pick up on people's interests, and at Trading Central, we were originally known as a technical analysis shop, sort of like world leaders in technical analysis. And if an online broker, or other, wealth management provider was looking for technical analysis, we are sort of like what people thought of. So that's really great. But we realized that, expanding into other areas like news analytics, fundamental analysis, economic indicators, like really expanding the data set and bringing our data analytics and algo sort of AI capabilities into these other realms has allowed us to reach and help more people, because I think we really need to capture people where they are, what interests them. And so Market Buzz was one we already talked about, which is really about news analytics. We've got products in other categories. So people looking at how's the business performance of a company doing? Are they growing revenue and earnings? Do they pay a dividend? All these different ways of analyzing a stock sort of fundamentally, and that's our product, Fundamental Insight. And you can see from the graphics here that really it's all about rich visuals and color to help sort of look like you're in the category. And then just like a quick peek at our classical technical insight. And, it's been, this product is like well established in the marketplace. And, it's really cool to see us layering pattern recognition and technical analysis over top of Refinitiv data. So it's been really great working with you guys on that. But what's been different here has been seeing our clients reimagine technical analysis for a mobile experience to appeal to the active traders that are glued to their mobile apps and getting updates there. And so just a change in the design to suit that environment. So hopefully that just gives you a little broad view of the categories.
That's very useful. And Charles, what about you? Are you seeing anything different? Anything sort of to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, what Catherine said is accurate. I think one thing to point out with what Catherine's showing you is the simplicity of it. Right? There's one thing Trading does really well is takes lots of complex data and simplifies it for the investor, which is really important to do. The other thing we're seeing, and this is kind of more regional in terms of uptake, is the use of ESG data as part of the investing decision. It's not as much, obviously, as technical, but what we've seen through the pandemic, I think prior to the pandemic, I think ESG was more of a sideshow, right? More of an also-ran in terms of data. But what we saw through the pandemic, especially in Asia in particular, was the use of ESG to make investment decisions. And I think the reason is the highest scoring ESG companies are the best run companies. The ones that have the highest E score, especially the highest G score in governance, right? The ones that are most well run are the ones that do really well. So we saw a lot more uptick from people looking for ESG data, especially in Asia. Not as much in North America, and in the EMEA markets, a little bit mixed at this point. But we're seeing more and more folks look to incorporate ESG as part of the decision-making process, because it's really important to incorporate your values and the best run companies into your decision-making. So ESG is definitely a part of that.
Such an interesting area, ESG. And what I find is topics like that bring out a lot of strong opinions in the wealth management organizations that we work with. So sometimes we have a little bit of a tension between, professionals' views on how people should invest and what they should be considering and what they should invest in. And there's a bit of a tension there with what people are interested in and how people want to invest. And what captures their attention. And, so for example, I just remember, a colleague, encouraging his kid to trade in some of the stable companies like, I don't know, Costco or like whatever, the kid went on to trade much more, controversial stocks and actually did quite well, and it wasn't quite what he was hoping for. So it wasn't quite the lesson that he was hoping for. And what I mean to say there is that we have to honor people's own interests and sort of meet them there. And so we like to look at things like if you're interested in a certain theme or a certain news topic or a certain category of content, we will meet you there. We will summarize what we know. We will give you alternative ways to look at that data. And then we will use that moment to provide a little bit of what we like to say snackable education, or a little, expand sort of your knowledge outside of maybe what you're gravitating to. So I think there's a real relationship there between meeting people where they want to engage and then leveraging what to sort of expand their views and introduce them to other content, and that's where really compact analytics are key. I mean, we've seen, just as an example, a really popular tool in brokers is like to have a stock screener, a way to filter the market and see what assets match up to certain criteria that you're looking for. But it was always used by a certain subset of the user base. And in one example, we have this sort of like ranking API where we can say, okay, well, you're looking at Tesla, or you're looking at a specific stock that you're interested in. By the way, did you know that it's ranked number, 13 out of 64? And so you're meeting them at that moment where they're interested in a specific stock, whether or not you agree with it, with that being a great investment. And then providing them some data to get them curious, to get them to go and explore, how that really truthfully is performing or measures up against other possibilities. And we saw with that feature, we saw like at least a doubling of adoption of the screening tools just by placing that compact insight. And it's why we're super obsessed with that topic, to make a more integrated experience.
Because I was going to say that's an interesting thing in terms of bringing people through that journey where you'll have sort of investors who are brand new, don't really feel that they know what they're doing, want to learn, and then as they sort of become more experienced, how do you sort of bring them through that journey as their persona sort of evolves, from being this sort of newbie investor?
Yeah, I mean, we try to model our sort of the wisdom that we've gained over the years, and this is sort of like a one-page summary, and I'll take you through it because a lot of the text is really small here, but just to get the idea across of how we think. And models are interesting because they're never completely accurate. They never completely represent reality, but they allow you to sort of focus your thinking. And it's a great decision support tool when we're reviewing how, what we recommend to our clients or how we advance our features. So what you're seeing here is really a grid that on one dimension, we're looking at the frequency of managing positions. Like how often are people in there poking at their portfolio and changing things around? And so starting at the bottom left, you've got people who are, just sort of new. They've maybe opened an account. They're not changing things too much. They're a little bit cautious and just learning. And then the sort of horizontal dimension there is their experience level. And that's why in that sort of bottom left quadrant, we're talking about really new investors who are just like getting started. This is where we see a lot of people that are new into the space that could use our help. So we've got a number of different personas here. That bottom left one is like the apprehensive newbie. Maybe they get a little more experience and they really start changing things around in their portfolio. And we call those the excited self-starters. And they really want tools that give them that rich data. So they're the ones that will switch, they'll switch if they've started out in one broker because it's simple and it's engaging them, but then they need more. And so those are the people that'll switch if they're not getting that data richness that satisfies their curiosity and excitement about the space. Often what happens is we plot this confidence curve over top of here, and it's not a perfect model, but the idea is people aren't super confident. They start to get some wins and some experience, and they get really confident. And sometimes there's a little bit of a crash there. And so when you were talking, Charles, about that human relationship and how technology can help augment or like deepen, that relationship. This is where it gets really important to realize that some people do sort of crash out. They get a little bit of a reality check, and how do we help them in that moment? And those are some of the nuances that we can think about when designing a user experience is how to recognize these moments and offer something. So for example, we have one tool called Strategy Builder. It offers some back testing over top of all sorts of data that people dig in and want to filter the markets based on all of this rich data, which is kind of cool. But as people crash out, we want to make sure that they're aware of a way forward, that, okay, so maybe your portfolio isn't doing as well, but here's, and often you'll see comparisons to benchmark indices that maybe sometimes make people feel worse because they're not doing as well. So we want to provide them a benchmark that's actually actionable, that maybe they can pursue if they're not doing so well. And that's where we have these sort of back-tested expert strategies that help people incorporate some discipline into how they're making selections and broadening their portfolio, and hopefully come back up instead of dropping out of the market, because that churn in users is expensive. So just I don't want to get into too much detail. We plot on here all sorts of features, like what are the features and tools that our different personas are interested in, and that allows us to work with clients on not just which data set that you think you should license and offer to your clients, but how do we incorporate it into the problems you're trying to solve?
Yeah, Kat, this is great. I think I like the term you used before, snackable, right? I think that's the way to approach this, is you want to be able to provide, the content information they need at the time that they need it, as I mentioned before, but for the right persona, right? So for those newbies on the left, right, you want to make it very basic, right? Get them up to speed, get them educated on what's possible. Here at Refinitiv, what we do, the way we deliver our investor solutions is, all the way from widgetized components, very simple, basic components that allow a firm to build in, news, charting, quotes right into a website. It really makes it really simple for both a wealth provider to enable our capabilities, but also for an investor to get very simplified views. And then over time, as the investor moves along that journey, that persona journey to the more sophisticated, more confident, more educated investor, you can adjust the experience to be more in line with that type of persona. So you can add in more detailed analysis. You mentioned stock screener, the ability to kind of do a little more research on your own as you become more confident and more able to use your information that's given to you, right? All the way up to, we also have a platform here that's an active trader platform. So it's a fully streaming, very full, robust platform for traders who are working 30, 40, 50 trades, a month. The ability to do equity trading, options trading, the ability to do multi-leg options. So as you get more sophisticated, you want to move the experience along with that investor, give them the pieces that they need, and you want to be able to be flexible. So to be able to deliver the basic widgets in the beginning, the more complex experiences in the middle, and then really that full-fledged active trading platform towards the point where they're ready to move into that more self-directed, I could do it myself, I know what I need, give me the full experience to be an active trader. It really depends on the persona and really understanding your clients. I think for wealth providers out there, it's really doing this mapping that you've done here to go out and identify who are they really selling to, what are their clients like, what do they really want, right? And where are they in that journey, and give them really the basics, the education in the beginning, but then the more freedom to roam as they get more farther along in that journey.
Yeah, we realized for a while that we weren't addressing that top right quadrant as well as we should be, because some of our analytics were plotted on a chart over here, and even though it was a convenient space, it wasn't where you had these really active, experienced people working in their live charts and their streaming lists and so on. And so we recently launched something called Recognition on Demand and some services to really tightly integrate with that charting and active trader platform experience, because those users, that persona of user, it's to use a cliche, time is money, and if it's a little bit of friction there, they're going to go on and find something that has less friction. And we've seen some really interesting use of our products where it's like right in that charting experience, and then to the point where you can trade from the chart and pre-populate an order with some of these levels that we offer, and people will tweak those levels before placing the order. But that seamlessness really increases the conversion, if you will, of people practically applying data and insight to actually making trades. So So yeah, that was an interesting lesson for us, and we're helping some clients with that.
Definitely. It's actually quite a good time to come to polling questions, try and understand from our audience, what types of analytics they're offering to their customers, and sort of potentially look to get some insights more on that side of things. So we'll just give it a minute for the answers to come through.
I think we should see how advanced people really are, right? I think a lot of people think you need to be very advanced, right, in some cases. But I think to our points earlier, I think depending on the client you're trying to target, you don't need to be very advanced, right? You need to have the basics, or maybe not, maybe just very little, right? Is that maybe not what they're looking for, right? Maybe they expect an advisor to give that, or they don't expect the tool to be, especially some of the robo-advisors out there, they're really not advanced at all, right? They go very, very basic, but the experience in which to invest is very, very simple, right? So we work with a firm here at Refinitiv called InvestSuite, and they do a great job of creating self-directed and robo experiences. The analytics are very good, but that's not what sells it. It's really the workflow and the experience in the app that really makes it really easy to invest. That's really what drives the clients to the platform.
Yeah. I think those partnerships are important because they help people to practically move forward. I mean, there's a lot of content in what we've been discussing, and there's a lot of different, projects, if you will, that could be launched to, further some of these points. And so it's sort of like, how do you incrementally move forward, because agile and incremental progress is sort of the name of the game, because you can't wait for just like a big new world to be built, and that's where I think some of the partnerships do facilitate things. I mean, we first of all, we work with clients just to help them sort of like ratchet down to like sort of like what's going to have an impact now versus next, and then maybe later. So we try to sort of simplify the view of how you take sort of a grand vision and start making progress now. And some of what enables that is the capabilities that we offer to deliver. So whether it's an API where you can really do anything with this, or whether it's pre-built, little widgets to throw something up and start delivering a simpler experience, or maybe it's a real fulsome web application that is embedded to deliver that deeper, richer experience. And, I just think that, working with, Refinitiv, Trading Central partners, it allows you to sort of switch on and move forward more quickly than, the way that some firms sort of try to really do everything themselves. So.
Yeah, I definitely think that is something we see with the different firms and the levels of how they try and do things. And Charles, maybe do you have any specific examples of what some wealth managers or neo brokers or more traditional brokers are asking for to try and boost their online services, sort of more broadly?
Yeah, I think it's one is definitely the ability to do some type of planning, right? The ability to go into a platform and put in where you are today, where you want to be in the future, what your goals are, and get back some analysis as to what I need to do to get to those goals, right? Whether it be retirement or investing in a vacation home or a boat, right? The ability to kind of align my investments to that plan and be able to get recommendations back as to how to do that. I think definitely we're seeing that drives a lot of investors to the platforms, right? So it's not just about investing and picking securities, it's about, understanding what direction to go and giving me a basic idea. Bank of America, Merrill in the US rolled out a life plan about 2 years ago that made basic financial planning available to all Bank of America clients, not just wealth clients, but all the banking clients as well, all 60 million or so banking clients. It was really well received because it gave them it was a couple different benefits. One, it gave them insight into what they need to do. It gave them the ability to see what else their bank can provide in terms of, what Merrill Lynch can offer, a Bank of America banking client. And three, it gave Bank of America more insight into their clients, right? So let them know more about them to better serve them. So there's a win-win on both sides. Definitely planning is definitely one that we're seeing. Two, I think I've seen a lot more uptick recently, especially post-COVID, in options trading, right? The ability to kind of construct very simple options trade, maybe one or two leg trades that allow you to hedge different investments, to do more with your investments beyond just buying and holding, or trying to time the market or sell short. I think options trading is something we're seeing more investors come to, because if you do it in the right way and make it simple and show the profit or loss of an options trade very easily, it makes sense, right, to do some of these additional trading types, because it gives them more ways to capture return, and even in some cases do it in a very much protected way. And three is, as we're seeing on the screen here, is analysis, right, and having the right amount of analysis that makes your platform more engaging. Right, obviously, Catherine talked to the news analytics that they do with Market Buzz, but more market-related insights. More platforms are out there today trying to do more predictive analytics, right? Looking back at historically what investments have done, looking for additional patterns and providing more insights into what may happen next. And the ability to give some insight into some prediction, some direction, is what I think clients are looking for, right? They're doing a lot on their own, but if you can tell them, hey, based on this pattern we've seen 5 or 6 previous times, we expect this security to do X in the next month or so. I think those are things that investors are looking for in terms of new capabilities.
I really love how you brought it back to like how you started with goals and feedback. Those, if you think about whether it's health tech or wealth tech, in these categories, one of the promises of sort of like transforming the experience or rethinking the experience is really about to help people with their habits, to help people be self-aware and to make progress. And so it was really interesting, in Canada, there was a company called Wealthsimple, and one of the things they noticed is that people were logging in every day and looking at their performance, and this was all great while the markets were good. They logged in and they saw green and they saw up, and like everybody felt good and everybody kept trading. And then we had a bad period and people felt bad and people had anxiety. And what we realized is just because things have been presented that way in the past doesn't mean it's the best way to present it. I mean, they really shifted their experience to focus on contributions. Like, how can I help you be aware of what you can control? Things like, contributing regularly, being aware of your diversification, and so what's interesting is the interplay, like these different 1, 2, and 3 that you talked about down to analytics, they have a relationship together. So, let's take, your goals and diversification. I mean, we look at, if you have a little algo to give you some feedback about your diversification level, that's a great moment to offer people to go over and, if you've got lots of large caps and you're not looking at small and mid caps, that's a great moment to bring people over to explore opportunities in a screener tool. Or if you have a certain portfolio that appears diversified in one category, but then you look at it from, let's say, a ratings perspective, like we've got a quantamental rating, or a technical summary scores, those sorts of things. You can look at your portfolio and say, how many of my stocks are actually looking strong or weak, and look at diversification from that point of view and invite them over to explore other categories of stocks. So there's a real interplay between the sort of like goals and personal feedback right down to how people use these investment research tools to assist them in making progress.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a nice 1, 2, 3.
No, the conversation of the goal really is, even in this market, right, if you have 3 goals and market's doing poorly, right, you may not be able to achieve that last most ambitious goal, but you can still spin the story to say, you can still achieve your most important goal, which could be retirement, right? And you can make it to a positive story to say, well, we're going to adjust your allocation to make sure you're going to retire still on time. You may not get that boat you wanted, but we'll keep some investments there, and if the market turns around and you do really well, you might still get that. So you can always make a positive spin if you have, the clients looking at their goals and not looking at the market directly, right? If you're looking at benchmarks, right, and you're not beating it, that's a problem. But if you're still achieving your most important goal, then that's probably a good story.
So in that way, we're all helping people with their fulfillment and happiness, aren't we? We've got important jobs.
I guess so. Brilliant.
Well, I think that's just wary of time. That's probably quite a good place to wind up. And what I'm taking from that is that if I use the tools and follow what you guys are saying, I'm going to get a boat. So I think that's a good place to finish.
Thank you.
Catherine and Charles, thanks so much for your time today, and for walking us through not just sort of where things are going, what some of the sort of newer investors are looking at. I really enjoyed sort of that walk through the sort of journey of the investor, but also more importantly, some of the tools that Refinitiv and Trading Central are releasing, in unison as well. I really like the idea of sort of taking a lot of data, adding a lot of analytics, which are actually quite complex, but actually to make things simpler for the end investor, and to make things better for them. So, no, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you to everyone in the audience for joining.
Thanks, Will.
That was
Great talking
fun.
to you, Catherine. Thank you. Thank you.